Good day everyone, I'm Maria Leodina and Taberdo, your discussant for today in EL 111. And my topic for today is Folk Oral Literature of the Native Americans. Thousands of years ago, people migrated to what is now North America. These people came in several groups and split into many other groups, until hundreds of Native American nations has spread across the continent. Until the end of the 15th century, American Indians were the only people in North America. But in the 16th and 17th centuries, a large influx of European explorers settled on what is today America, bringing with them all sorts of problems for the Native Americans. European diseases and weapons resulted in mass deaths, and the European people often treated American Indians horribly, taking their land and abusing or killing them. Before the Europeans arrived though, life has its own types of difficulties. Wars between Indian nations caused pain and death. Droughts, floods, and other natural disasters ruined food stocks. Disease and animal attacks also contributed to the harsh reality of life many years ago. Now let's move on with the Native American oral literature. American Indian oral tradition and teachings are used to transmit culture and preserve the history of American Indians. American Indian oral traditions, which include storytelling, teachings, family and tribal history, as well as contemporary Indian literature, lie at the heart of the tribal culture. It is largely through oral tradition that American Indian cultures have been preserved and transmitted through the generations. American Indian stories, teachings, and oral histories are rich in cultural texts. They provide great insight into the worldview, values, and lifestyle, which are an integral part of the heritage of American Indians. American Indian oral tradition expresses the truths, wisdom, and humor of human existence. Their themes are universal. Oral tradition tells how the earth was created. It explains that people have a special responsibility to all living things with whom we share the earth. Many of the stories are about a person with both human and mystical characteristics. The Dakota called the sometimes hero, sometimes trickster, and the Dakota are one of the Native American tribe. Through his actions, American Indian children for generations have learned how to behave and have learned what is expected of them as adults. Many of the stories are seasonal. Most often, the winter months are the season for stories. So here, for example, the Dakota believe that the time to tell several stories is when snakes and other animals that hibernate underground are covered with snow. They say that if their spirits, if above ground, would use the sacred knowledge against the storyteller. For the Ojibwa of Minnesota, the reasons for winter stories are varied. The Ojibwa is also one of the Native American tribes that live in the area that is now Minnesota. They believe that there was more time during the cold winter months, which prompted the need for a diversion. The Ojibwa also believe that if stories are told in the summer, the animal spirit being would then hear themselves spoken of. Frogs, toads, and snakes were particularly feared. It was true a tremendously large toad or giant frog would come out of the pond at night and pursue the storyteller. Snakes may have been held in awe because of association with the mythological theme of the continuous warfare between the giant snakes and the Ojibwa culture hero, Nana Bozo. Nana Bozo is a culture hero, creator, and trickster of various indigenous oral histories, and he is known by a variety of names and appears prominently in many origin tales. For the Anishinabeg, the belief may differ from area to area, but the practice is similar. Sacred stories, particularly those about Nanabozo, are to be told only in the winter. Anishinabeg are a group of culturally related indigenous peoples resident in what is now called Canada and the United States. Other stories can be told throughout the year, and if possible, elders in the community should be consulted regarding timing and customs for specific stories. It is customary on the part of one who requests a specific story to offer tobacco or some other gift to the storyteller. Storytellers were held in high esteem. Often an older member of the family was the narrator. However, there was often a man or woman specially talented in storytelling, and perhaps even in acting stories out. This person was regarded as the virtual professional. The storyteller uses tobacco to show respect for the spirits who live in the stories and whose names are mentioned. The types of stories, some are humorous, others are serious, and at times tragic. The humor lies in absurd situations, roughness, and vulgarity, often offering a jovial poetic justice. The seriousness of tragic appears in themes of cruelty, infidelity, death, misfortune, and struggle for livelihood. Categories include but are not limited to once upon a time stories, legendary history, stories told to teach, stories of Nanabozo, nature lore, magic, practices, and omens. So again, Native American culture. The two main principles that Native Americans live by focus on the fact that the earth and all living things are sacred, and with that, they believe that humans were in that, but we weren't necessarily the top of the food chain, like we believe here. They didn't necessarily, or they felt that humans needed to respect everything else, so that goes with the next point, which is the circle of life. In here, we've got animals, plants, and all the forces of nature that are all in this circle. And the humans are part of that and must respect everything. And also, they believe that not one person could own a land. Today or in present times, there are people that own the land where their house is on or that their business is on or is built. But to the Native Americans, they believe that the land was just the land and it wasn't something. In storytelling, it isn't like what we picture today. It wasn't written down in books that you would read from or hand off to somebody else. Their stories were passed down orally from one person to the next, from generation to generation, and they did that so that they can continue to express their views on the world. A lot of their stories that were told were what are called myths, and that is a story that is going to explain something, and in their case, they were explaining some sort of natural happening or some aspect of what humans do, or maybe a mystery of the universe. Then those are kind of broken down into two different categories. We've got creation myths, and that is telling how the world and humans came into existence, and then another type is origin myths. So then that's looking at how those other things, the natural phenomena, happen or why a society have a certain belief or custom. Next is the function of myths. So when you look at those, it goes into what the reason is behind those myths is to really emphasize that strong bond between the creator, humanity, and the natural world, and making sure that people remembered that it was the duty of humans to maintain that balance. it also gave the people a sense of identity, and it felt like it helped them to do many things like healing the sick and making sure that they had plenty of food, and mostly was teaching the moral lesson or to help them to learn something about the past. So that's it for my discussion. I hope you learned something. Thank you.